Gosh, I said to Jonathan, it always feels like I'm coming to see my grandchildren. Really, because if you think about it, Jonathan was my child, you're my grandchildren, so it works out perfect. I'm just going to move this a little bit so that I can pay attention. First of all, I just want to say thank you. You have made me feel so welcome here, and I love Toronto, even in this weather. Really, it's been okay for me, and hello, Jonathan, I know you're there watching right now going, God, I hope he says everything right. First of all, that song, thank you. That was just a great, great song. And, you know, do what you love and love what you do. And when I listened to it, and Jonathan sent it to me in advance, I thought, what a great recipe for life, isn't it? Do what you love and love what you do. And I had missed the caveat, which is, because if you do what you love, you do love what you do. Brilliant, just great. But here's what I thought about that. It is a great recipe for life, but like most recipes, you have to do more than just know the recipe. You have to do more than just even understand the recipe. You actually have to execute the recipe, don't you? And how many people here have ever executed a recipe really horribly? Right? Right? It's right there in front of you, and you know Betty Crocker did it perfectly, and yet you're still putting it all together, and the outcome is just very different. But I love that idea because, for me, every single recipe works perfectly, absolutely perfectly, so long as you know who the chef is. Think about it. I'll wait. You know, I mean, are you like this famous five-star restaurant chef, or are you like a short cook, you know, with a greasy pan in front of you? Or are you all of it at different times in your life? Both chefs, different experiences, just different realities, different expressions of being a chef of life. So Kevin and I, when we got here on Thursday, the first thing we did was go to a really phenomenal restaurant. And we didn't even know. Kevin was really being annoyed because I'm one of those finicky people that will walk through an entire neighborhood, pass 1,000 restaurants and go, that one doesn't feel right. And he's like starving. And I'm like, yeah, that one doesn't work for me. And finally I had to turn to him and I just said, look, the perfect restaurant is waiting for us. And when we get there, I'll know. Usually that's when he says, God, I hate science of mind. So the truth is, we get to this, so we almost went back to a restaurant because I said, I give up, let's just go to that other place. But then we kind of walked a different direction and walked by this restaurant. And we both looked at it, looked in, and we went to eat there. And we have decided it is our best dining experience ever. Wow. And I'm old, so we've been at this a long time. We have been, really. And so I want to tell you the name of the restaurant, I'm sure many of you have been there, is Origin. How many of you have eaten at Origin? You got to go. It's a little pricey, but it's good. Origins. There's many of them. Origins. Okay, Origins. The chef's name, I wrote it down, Claudio Aprile. Yeah, so he's, yeah, you know, right. But there you go. Okay, so you know who that is, this amazing chef. So when we look at the recipes of our lives, do we know that we are this amazing chef? Do we know who we are to such an extent that we have that kind of dining experience throughout our entire life? And when I say dining, I really mean living. Do we have that kind of living experience through our entire life? So that was the fifth core concept that you did, Lena, right? And I just want to hand it over to Lena. Yeah. I have taught many Science of Mind 300 classes, I think 7 now, and I'm on my 7th, and we're kind of in the same week you are. And of course, Jonathan was one of my practitioner students. And what you just expressed and how you explained it was so clear and powerful. And just so you know, how many of you have been in, I'm going to do it this way, how many of you have been in Science of Mind or New Thought 10 years plus? Raise your hand. 10 years plus. Okay, like 4 of you. Okay, great. 9 years. 8 years. 7 years. 6 years. 5 years. 4 years. Well, 3 years. 2 years. 1 year or less. Okay, it's a pretty eclectic group, you guys. Okay, So you must know something about Science of Mind. I want to tell you this. Ernest Holmes, of course, founded Science of Mind, or wrote the book Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes wrote this book in 1927, and we have taken the teachings of Science of Mind and expanded them, which Ernest Holmes basically said, if you are still reading what I wrote in 1927, in 2014, you missed my point. And I think a lot of people still are missing the point, but I can tell you at this center, you are not, because you have Reverend Jonathan, because he knows how to expand this teaching. And I knew that the minute I met him. He knows how to take this teaching and expand upon it. And one of the biggest things that this teaching has finally stepped into and expanded upon is the 3 magic word idea. 3 magic words. How many of you know what the 3 magic words are? Okay, good. So Jonathan's going to show you this movie at some point, but it's called, the 3 magic words are, I am God. Can we all say that together? I am God. Now, I can guarantee there are some of you sitting here today who are uncomfortable with that sentence. Because at my own center, where you would think they'd really get it by now, since I hammer it in every single Sunday, they still leave the church saying to me, I'm still having a problem with the I am God thing. And I get that. I was raised Catholic. It sounds sacrilegious to say I am God. But would it be sacrilegious to say I am a brilliant chef? No, unless you're not, right? No, I am God is no different than saying I am a brilliant chef. I am a brilliant economist. I am a brilliant doctor. I am a brilliant physician. I am a brilliant ... That's what I am God means. That there is that within me that I can tap into in such a way that everything I do is absolutely perfect. And that's why this core concept 5 is so important. So I'm going to read it again, Lena. This is a universe of wholeness, allness, oneness. Spirit is a transcendent, perfect whole that, in its infinite inclusivity, harmoniously embraces all seeming opposites. All seeming opposites. 2 important words, though, in that sentence is harmoniously embraces all seeming opposites. So I have a question for you today. How many seeming opposites showed up in your life this week? Anybody have any? Seeming opposites that just show up in life? This does not... You pointing to your mother? Okay, so this little girl back there just went... Is that Marjorie? Is that your daughter? Okay. Love that. Husband and wives do that all the time too. Right? So how many seeming opposites showed up in your life this week? And more importantly, what did you do with them? What did you do with these seeming opposites? In Lena's essay, she said something really important, which is this. We tend to take the seeming opposites of our lives and want to cancel them. You know that old New Thought thing, cancel, 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 cancel? You have a bad thought, it's like cancel, cancel. I don't cancel anything. Because if I have a thought, it's there for a reason. I want to know what it is. No matter what it is. Even if it's like, oh my God, you're so stupid today. Really? Who said that? Did I say that? Do I think that? Why do I think that? These are all important things. When you know you are God, there is no opposite to anything. It's just stuff. And when it shows up, you get to deal with it, honestly, from a place of experiencing it. I'm not afraid to experience whatever I need to experience. I'm sure Jonathan, or maybe he hasn't, has shared that I went through stage 4 cancer 4 years ago. I just came past 4 years of clean, cancer-free living. Yeah, thank you. And I can tell you this, people say to me, they say, there's going to come a time where you're just going to know that it was the most wonderful experience of your life. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. No. Have you done chemo? There's no way to say that that's the most wonderful experience of my life. Have you had radiation? There's no way to say that that was the most wonderful experience of my life. It wasn't, but it was an experience of my life. And I did live through it, and I did go through it, and it was still God. And I remember the day after maybe the 2nd or 3rd chemo, and I was like, I'm going to sail through this. No, I'm going to keep my hair, which I did, which they were shocked. As you can tell, I care about my hair. I'm trying an experiment to see how long I can grow it before Kevin absolutely throws a fit, because he likes me in short hair. So I knew I'd keep my hair, and I did. And my doctor said to me at one point, she said, you know, James, you would have done better knowing that you wouldn't get nauseous. She said, because if you're that powerful to not lose your hair with cisplatin, you should have said, I'm not going to get nauseous. And I said, no, you know what? It never occurred to me that I wouldn't get nauseous. I bought into the nauseous, I will be sick on chemo. And I was really sick. And I weigh, right now I weigh about 169 pounds. I weighed 132 at the end of it. And I'd still climb my little bony body up onto that stage and talk about science of mind. The congregation would be like, wow, look at him. Not a lot left. But I can tell you this, when I was laying at the bottom of that toilet on that last day of that chemo, it was just so horrible. Such an awareness came to me, which is, this is God too. God's even here. God's at the bottom of my bathroom. I also noticed that my housekeeper is a really good cleaner. But God is right there at the bottom of the barrel, because it's all God. Because if it's all God, what possibly else could there be, right? So, Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And I think we spend an awful lot of time trying to find out, who am I? Who am I? What's mine to do on this earth? What's my purpose? You know, if I hear what's my purpose one more time, I want to blow my head off. What's my purpose in life? You know what? You have one purpose in life. One purpose that Thomas Troward tells us. Do you know what that is? To just be. Yeah, sort of. No. Yes, sort of. Well, I don't know. Let me think about that. Yes, to just be. But here's what Thomas Troward says, and I love this. The only purpose of life is to enjoy life. That's it, which is so perfect for your song. Do what you love what you do. I refuse to do what I don't love anymore. I absolutely refuse to do it. I will not entertain doing something that I don't love. If something comes up that I know actually is mine to do in this moment, and I even contemplate that I'm not going to love doing it, I either have to decide not to do it, even though it's mine, or decide to love it anyway. And that's not just a bunch of la-la talk about how to do things you don't like. It really isn't, because I get to check things off all the time. This, I don't do this. This, I don't do this. So the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So the title of my talk today is When in Rome. When in Rome, or when in Toronto, but when in Rome, right? So Kevin reminded me of this funny thing I do whenever I go to a country that doesn't speak English. I take on an affectation of their accent and speak English that way. Really. And I remember once we were at a German restaurant, and they handed me something, and I went, thank you. And Kevin says to me, what did you just say? I said, thank you. He said, no, you didn't. You said, thank you. I said, I know, because that's how they speak. He goes, no, that's how they speak when they're trying to speak English with their accent. You shouldn't speak with their accent trying to speak English, although you're speaking German. He was like, you're confusing everyone. But it doesn't stop me. Because I just think they feel more comfortable when I say thank you. I don't know. But the hard part is that it doesn't matter what country I'm in, I say thank you. So, when in Rome, right? So, the real title of my talk today is When in God. When in God. So, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. When in God, I don't think we know exactly what that means fully anymore, or ever did. When in God, when as God, if I'm God, now what? If I am God, how do I act? Do I have to suddenly become this pious, religious, spiritual person? I remember once someone said to me, God, it must be tough being a minister. You can't do all those fun things anymore people like they don't let you do. I'm like what? Go to strip clubs? What are you talking about? What is it I can't do as a minister? And here's the thing. Everything is God. Every single thing on this planet is God. So when I know I'm God, I just have to come from that place, that conscious place. Going back to this fifth core principle. If there's no duality and it's all God, how do you know what to do? How do you know what to choose? What do you think the answer is to that? And you can yell it out. What feels good? What feels good? Does this feel good to me? And I don't even use good anymore. I am like the hawk when it comes to duality. I don't want to know good and bad. And oh my God, I loved your thing about beauty. I don't think I'll ever tell anyone that they're beautiful again in the same way I used to. Because I used to think someone was beautiful and maybe this person wasn't as beautiful. And what does that mean? My God, that was so profound for me because I have a 15-year-old daughter, 14-year-old daughter, almost 15 growing up. And she's had this body, stuff with her body image. And she's as beautiful as anyone else. And I think that's where we have to come from. But she's got, blonde hair, blue eyes, a beautiful figure. She's the most beautiful girl in the world. I think that was the song. She's the most beautiful girl inside and out. And the day she looked at me and she said to me one day, she said, I think I'm fat. And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding. Because she's not. And even so, what if she was? What a brilliant idea. No duality. What if we were the people that got to walk this earth and saw everyone as beautiful? Everyone as beautiful. Everyone is perfect. Everyone is as vibrant. Everyone as important, as valuable. What if we really could live that way? Well, you know how we can live that way? And it's not blasphemy. To know that I am God. But, and here's where the blasphemy comes in. People think when you say I am God, you're saying I am God and therefore I'm better than you. Or I'm more than you. It's not. It's I am God and so are you. And so are we all. And if every country felt that way, we would not be experiencing what we're experiencing right now on this planet. We just wouldn't. So what if we were the people being called into that? What if Ernest Holmes, after all these years, inhabited a group of people that finally got it? Really? Open at the top. Eckhart Tolle said, only the truth of who you are is realized. Only the truth of who you are, if realized, will set you free. How many of you ever went to a Unity church? Yeah, or ever heard of Dr. Eric Butterworth? Brilliant man. Now, he was my first metaphysical teacher. I was supposed to go to a Science of Mind church at Lincoln Center, where all my friends were going, and instead, I ended up at Avery Fisher instead of Alice Tully, watching Eric Butterworth, and I stayed with him for 10 years, until I heard Dr. Walker speak. Then I moved over to Science of Mind. But the truth shall set you free is what I really got from Eric Butterworth. And when you look at Eckhart Tolle, only the truth of who you are, if realized, will set you free. And Wayne Dyer said, authentic empowerment is the knowing that you are on purpose doing God's work peacefully and harmoniously. God's work means your work, because that is who I am. God's work. I am doing God's work. Not just because I'm a minister or a singer or a playwright or whatever else I am. I'm doing God's work because I am God at all times. So it's not like I take this position of, I'm a man of God. I'm not a man of God. I am a man God. It's the gym. It works every time. But how are you all with this concept of I am God? Because here's the thing. If you're going to listen to these core concepts, and if this core concept is about oneness and wholeness, and there's no duality, you have to be God. What else would you be? If you're not God, what else are you, Linda? I'm God. Right? I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Who grew up Catholic? I grew up Catholic. Baltimore Catechism, did you all study that, or is that just American? The Baltimore Catechism. Where is God? God is everywhere. How do they miss the point? They teach you this at 7. God is everywhere. Well, then, this is where God is. Right here, fully present. Fully present. I also don't get involved anymore in the ocean and the wave. The wave, I am the wave of the ocean. I am the wave of the ocean. No, you know what? Because that's still duality. Because guess what I did one day? I took the wave, I brought a little jar to the beach, and when the wave came up, I took it. Put it in a jar, much to Kevin's chagrin, it's still sitting in our kitchen. And it sits on my kitchen. And I took it to church that Sunday, and I just reminded people that if they keep thinking they're the wave of the ocean, they're about as active as this glass of non-active water. And it just sits there. And then we did take it back to the beach, to throw it back, to teach my children that here's who it really works. I threw it back into the water, but then I just couldn't leave without another wave. So I took it again. Because I love the image on my counter that says, every time you think you are separate from the ocean that is God, you might as well just jar yourself inside a jar and realize that you're still, and you're so still, there's no possible use for you. That's how powerful this understanding of science of mind is. So last week at the Global Truth Center, and thank you, Linda, for writing me that note, I ended my talk by saying, if I am God, I can ... And it was very provocative. People got me after church and then wrote me things during the week. If I am God, I can ... Because I want you to think about your mind for a second. If your mind fully encompasses and embraces I am God, then there shouldn't be one thing that shows up in your desire realm that you can't fully demonstrate. Because if I am God, ... Think about that. So really, our only journey is the journey home to the truth of who we are, which is God. But I thought today I would pose something else, which is this. If I am not God, I can ... If I'm not God, then what? Well, I can get really depressed. I can really worry a lot. How many worriers do we have here? 2 hands, that was good. I grew up in an Irish Catholic family whose motto was, if you are not worrying about something, you're not doing your job. Literally, my family, if you're not worrying about it, you don't care about it. Think about that. So, if I am not God, I can ... Which one of those two equations would you like to work on? Which one of those two equations would you like to embrace to such a degree that that's how you live your life, that's how you walk around? If I am God, ... And here's the thing, God shows up in everything, on all levels. God expresses everywhere at all times. So that means those things that we call undesirables are still God. They're just undesirable for us. So you get to live on whatever level of God you choose to live on. It's not you don't get to just say, I am God, and then all of a sudden you manifest this perfect, free life of no more emotions, feelings, challenges, problems, nothing. You're dead, frankly. No, it's it just hit me. I was like, no, that's death. Okay. No, if I am God, I get to just decide which level of consciousness do I want to live on. So this shows up in my life, right here. How am I going to know it? What am I going to know it as? Who am I going to know it from? If I'm God, I can ... I can know it this way. I can know it this way. And there really is a way, as Linda said, to stay in the absolute and deal with the relative. Because as Ernest Holmes says, I don't know if Jonathan has given you this quote yet, right before Ernest Holmes died, he wrote a beautiful thing called the Seminar Lectures, which if only the Science of Mind movement would start teaching from there and expand, instead of going back 35 years and staying there. Because the Seminar Lectures, you may not know this, but when Ernest Holmes was towards the end of his life, he didn't recant a lot of what he said, but he said it was very simple. It was simplistic, because this is what he really came to know, and it's this. Do you all know the difference between the absolute and the relative? The absolute is like that which is the perfection of all God, absolute, the divine. And the relative is all the stuff that happens on the relative plane of action, the normal things that happen in your day-to-day living. It's the relative, what comes from our thinking and creating. Ernest Holmes at the end said, wait. There's no such thing as the absolute and the relative, because the relative is the absolute at the level of the relative. Did you get that? So this thing down here, I'll call it cancer, is God at the level of the cancer. It's still God. We say we have choice. We now have to live that life of choice. We have to prove that life of choice. So that you can't possibly say that you are not at choice for whatever is going on in your life. And that's a positive thing. It's not something to beat yourself up over if you're someplace you don't want to be. It's a place of saying, oh my goodness, right where I am, God is. But God is also at a bigger expression of this. And I am that too. So now I'm at choice. Ernest Holmes said, the universal mind contains all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. To it, all things are possible. The universal mind. One other thing I want to make sure I leave you with today is this idea. The universal mind is that mind that is all present everywhere. I've heard it said many times, well, I'm not all of God, I'm just a part of God. And I understand that, but I still think it's a way to keep us separate. I still think it's a way to teach duality. I still think it's a way to hold us back. I am the allness of God, and so are you. But I am the allness of God. At any moment that I step into, like that meditation that you did, that was so beautiful, when you get into meditation, wherever you go in mind, or you suddenly, haven't you had those moments where you just suddenly feel your heart has just expanded? Have you ever been on a beach and watched a sunrise or a sunset, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, it couldn't get better. And you're just like, I just want to be absorbed into this. Well, frankly, you are absorbed into it. That's why you experience it that way. So you are the universal mind. And as Ernest Holmes says, the universal mind contains all knowledge. You contain all knowledge. You contain all knowledge. You contain all knowledge. Not just the knowledge you've managed to get a hold of during these last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 70, 80, I don't know how old you all are, but however long you've been here. That's not just the knowledge. That's just the relative knowledge that you've amassed through your experience of life. You are all of knowledge. That's how big you are. That's how powerful you are. And therefore, all things are possible. Let's all just say that. All things are possible. One more time.
All things are possible.
I'd like you to say it again, but I would like you to add, for me. All things are possible for me. One more time. All things are possible for me. Now I'd like you to keep that sentence and add, because I know who I am. All things are possible for me because I know who I am. One more time. All things are possible for me because I know who I am. And then you're going to add, Jonathan's probably dying laughing because I'm always like, please keep the affirmation short. Please keep them short. All things are possible for me because I know who I am. I am God. Ready? Here we go. All things are possible for me because I know who I am. I am God. Do you all have that now? When you go home, I want you to write it out and put it somewhere so that you see it. Just for the rest of this week until Jonathan gets back here. Oh, he's back here tomorrow. But until next Sunday, I want you to write it out and just put it there. All things are possible for me because I know who I am. I am God. And basically, all we did was reiterate what Ernest Holmes said. But we just took it that next step. We actually started to embody it, to live it. So, you can be a 5-star chef. You can be a pastry chef. How many people like pastry chefs? I'm gluten-free now. I'm trying to get them to all cook with gluten-free stuff. You can be a short order chef. You can be any kind of chef because you can be any kind of God. You can express God any way you want. Now, what I like to say is, how about all of it? How about I'm all of it? Some days, I just want a burger. I just want to throw it on the grill and cook it and eat it. Yes? Don't you have those days? Every day. You're carb-free? That's good. And some days, that's very funny. And some days you want a gourmet dinner, don't you? Some days you just want to go and have, like we had at Origins, just this most incredible meal that just never stopped coming. It was just incredible. And some days you want to fast. Some days you're like, I don't have time for food. It's good, I'm just going to drink water and lemon. Those are the fun days. But it's choice, yes? It's just a choice. What if we are just here to choose and to just try, and to, when something shows up in our lives, to actually get it? Oh, well, on some level, I chose this. On some level, I chose this. So what in God's name was I thinking when I chose this? And what do I need to know about that? That's the excitement of life. That's the excitement. There's a wonderful book called The Thought Exchange, and I just taught 10 weeks of it. And I brought the author to LA to teach the last class with me, and I know Jonathan will teach that course here. It is brilliant, this book, The Thought Exchange. It helps, it's a great tool for science of mind teaching, a great tool. So, so here's one of the things I get from the Thought Exchange. He asks you in the book to experience your sensations, experience your emotions. Don't keep canceling them out. Don't try to find, we spend so much time trying to figure out a way not to feel this. How do I fix this emotion? How do I get to deal with it? How can I deal with it? How do I change it to this? As opposed to, what if we just were willing to feel what we feel? And he told this great story about Lucy Arnaz, and the man who wrote the book is a very successful Broadway composer, conductor, incredible man. And he said he was on stage doing, he was getting an award, and Lucy Arnaz was supposed to introduce him. And Lucy was standing backstage and she said, all right, let's talk about the thought exchange for a minute. My throat is scratchy, I'm feeling a hand at my throat, I'm nauseous in my stomach, and those are my sensations. Now, thought exchange. And then they said, ladies and gentlemen, Lucy Arnaz. And she went, I guess I can go out there with that. It's that. Can you feel what you feel and know that it's all God? Here's the great gift of that. When you know that, you're like the Energizer Bunny. You just keep going. And it's always good. So, who I am trumps what's going on every time. Who I am trumps what's going on every single time in your life. So, do what you love what you do. The reason you can do that, and the reason why you wrote that, is because, Pierre, you know you're God. When you know that you are God, then whatever you do, you get to love. Because that's what God is. God is just love. So what I know for this center, and I absolutely know for this center, as I look at all these incredible faces, and I just see this great work that Reverend Jonathan is doing, I know that you are the people. You are the Torontonians. Is that right? Was that right? Wasn't that good? Thank you. Hey, you are the people. You are the people that are ready to take I am God to the streets. Not just being God, but seeing God everywhere. No more duality, just the absolute truth that I can do, all things are possible for me because I know who I am. I am God, and so are you. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Grandpa.
Oh, that was good, Dennis.